Dramatics, welcome back. We're about to have a field day with episode 9 of When the Phone Rings. So much went down in this episode, so we'll need to dive right in. By now, y'all know the drill. There's going to be what? Spoilers. So watch on if you've already seen episode 9 or if you still just don't care. So we start off where we left off, and that's the scene between the two Hong sisters after Hong Hee-ju sees the proof that her husband's DNA doesn't match Park Sr.'s. Hong Hee-na asks if Hong Hee-ju already knew, and our girl doesn't, but she remains calm about the news. And so Hong Hee-na asks, does it even matter? And like I had assumed from the last episode, with her husband cryptically telling her that this could occur, that the Paksun that she knew could fade from existence. And our girl is smart, catching on immediately to what he meant. And honestly, him telling her that he loved her also helped anchor her feelings. So even if the scene from the last episode didn't happen, I personally think she still would have stood firm beside him. Hong Hee-na says, I know I have no right to say this, but I hope you won't be fooled anymore. I know your mom forced you to marry him in my place, and you had no choice. But if the Park family is deceiving us, you don't have to stay married to him. I'll find out the secret that family is hiding from us. I'll meet Park Sun if I have to. And as Hong Hee-na gets up to leave, Hong Hee-ju finally speaks. It's my choice. And also a little side note here. Remember when she had also indicated back in episode 6 when it would be her choice to speak to her sister? Now she's choosing this on her own volition. So Hong Hee-ju continues with, I wasn't just your stand-in. It's not because my mom forced me. I, Hong Hee-ju, choose Park Sun. After all, he's not the only one who has secrets. I've deceived him too, including being able to speak. Hong Hee-na has tears in her eyes as she marvels. So this is what your voice sounds like. It's pretty. I don't know how it'll sound to you, but when we were little, I liked how you called my name. Though I hated your mom, and it felt weird to suddenly have a younger sibling, your voice was so adorable. To have a little sister who called my name like that, it was really nice, to be honest. And another little side note, the subs on Netflix says Ina for what Hong Hee-ju used to call her sister. But from what it sounds like to me is what she truly called her was Oni, or older sister, which I think pulls so much more emotional weight than just being addressed by her name. Correct me if I misheard, but either case, I wish they had translated it in that way. And this was sweet because Hong Hee-ju doesn't know what to do with this information. Because most of her life, she has always been reproached for just breathing by her mother, that nothing she did was ever correct or right. And she was forced into silence by that woman to keep her place and not to rock the boat with Chairman Hong and his deaf daughter. So hearing that probably rings a bit hollow to Hong Hee-ju. But the reason why Hong Hee-na never was able to hear what her sister sounded like as they grew up was because her misery wanted company. And I'm also sure hearing that this was one of the endearing memories that Hong Hee-na took from their childhood can be a lot to process right now. And it's hard to imagine what might have been if fate hadn't stepped in that day with the car accident. After picking up the DNA test from the table, Hong Hee-ju asks who sent it. Hong Hee-na says she doesn't know, that it was sent anonymously. And she says it wasn't from our parents, but I'm certain of one thing. They knew I wouldn't marry him if I saw this. So someone hoped the marriage wouldn't go through. Now it's a question of who. Like I said in my episode 7 recap, I would really love if it was Park Sun that had sent it so that he could marry who he really wanted. But this might be a plotting hierarchy against our mains who might have done this. So this might be the kidnapper and the puppet master, or maybe even his mother had done this. So back at the fish store that is still on fire, Park Sun stirs awake. He gets himself and his relative to their feet, and the fish store guy asks, "What are you doing here?" Park Sun replies, "We have to get out of here." The older man exclaims, "He's after you." And he tries to push Park Sun out of the way to try and save him, but Park Sun refuses to leave him. And when he tries to get out, the fiery ceiling comes crashing down and it knocks them down and out. So since then, Hong Hee-ju has been repeatedly trying to call her husband, but there's been no answer. She looks at the clock on the wall and it's 12:30. So she calls 112 to report a missing person and how she can't reach her husband. He hasn't come home yet. And the officer on the other side of the line asks, "How long has it been since you last heard from him?" And she says it's been 6 hours. The officer says, Could it be that your husband's just running a little late? We can't file a missing persons report based on that alone. Hong Yi-ju asks, what should she do then? The officer replies, with an adult over 18 with no history of illness or evidence of a crime is considered a runaway, not a missing person. She says, there is evidence of a crime. My husband is being threatened by a complete madman. He might have done something to him. He set a fire and threw a bomb. He even pushed someone off a cliff. With all of that, the officer perks up with interest and he asks, what's your husband's name? But Hong Yi-ju hesitates. That's right, she can't publicly declare who she's married to. When the officer asks, she hangs up. Defeated, she sits down, but as she looks at the DNA report still sitting on the table, she wonders what his real name is. We get a brief flashback when she was still talking to Hong Ina, and Hong Yi-ju poses that question to her sister, along with how did her husband end up being Park's son in the first place? Hong Ina says that when she first met him, he was 15 years old. She hadn't seen him before, but it was strange. The Parks had a son 2 years older than her. He lived next door, but Hong Ina never saw him. Hong Yi-ju says, I get it now. I see why his parents treated him like a stranger. There was no affection at all. Hong Ina pipes up, maybe there's a biological son. If the current Park son became their son at the age of 15, then who was the Park son before that? And why did they hide him? Hong Yi-ju is determined to get to the bottom of that by paying a visit to her in-laws, who were in bed. Park Senior grumbles why she was here at this hour. Park Sun's mother asks if Hong Yi-ju came alone. Where's Park Sun? Hong Yi-ju proceeds to type out 112 on her phone and tells her in-laws to report it for her. Surprise! Now they know she can speak. She says that her husband hasn't come home and she can't reach him. Park Sr.'s flabbers are gasted, in awe of her talking. She ignores his question, saying that Chairman Park was known for doting on his grandson. So why was his beloved grandson hidden until he was 15? There was a reason his biological grandson couldn't be shown to the world. Is that why he suddenly presented a flawless fake grandson? Park Sr. barks out, fake? Hong Yi-ju says, I've lived as Park Sun's wife for 3 years, and I only found out now that he's not your biological son. Where do you get off saying that? Park Sr. demands. Park Sun's mother coolly states, he must be mistaken. You're not his real wife, but a stand-in. Then she kind of scolds, almost as if she's done with the facade of pretending everything is perfect. And then Miss Ma'am says, you're right, he's just a stand-in too. And her husband is shocked that she revealed that. Hong Yi-ju says, that's true, but he's different. Isn't he important and necessary to both of you? So find out what happened to him. So their assistant, Mr. Min, comes in and says that there hasn't been any reports filed under the spokesperson's name as of now. After standing, Park Sun's mother says, you hear that? Go home. I'll admit that he's important and necessary to us. So we won't just sit idly by, will we? With that, Hong Yi-ju bows and leaves. Park Sr. is still at a loss on when did she start talking and if his wife already knew. But seeing this kind of reception from the Parks, not surprising. Like Miss Ma'am said, Park Sun is nothing but a stand-in, a bragging right, a cover for the flaws of their family. But it seems that all the things Park Sun had gotten right, being this perfect son, adapting how he needed, and being an intelligent, high-striving man, nothing past that matters. It seems like what they wanted out of him is superficial, that they have no desire to learn who he truly is, a boy trapped in a life he didn't ask for, or the man he eventually evolved into, and how he's been affected by this shift in his life. And I'm not taking away what they went through, because I have no idea how it feels to have a child whose sinister tendencies are beyond all help and money to eradicate. I'm sure it was beyond stressful and heartbreaking, but that doesn't excuse the neglected behavior they enacted towards our Park Sun, especially when he became pretty much the epitome of what they wanted overall. A dutiful, successful son they can show off and pass down the family's political lineage. But as you know, our boy has also done pushbacks. He already told Hong Yi-ju English about that when they were little in episode 5, telling her to fight back, and it seems he's been doing that along the way. He's been hesitant about joining his father's campaign. He defends his marriage and Hong Yi-ju whenever he's called to the carpet for it. Not to mention these plans he's been mentioning probably also comes with some retribution against his quote-unquote parents, too. As Hong Yi-ju walks out of their house, the assistant Mr. Min follows her. He asks, how much does the spokesperson know about the person making the threats? She asks him what does he mean by that. Mr. Min asks, so nothing more about the heterochromia? So when she gets into her car, Hong Ye-ju is visibly shaken. We get a voiceover from Mr. Min. So apparently when Park Shin-yeol was young, he had eye surgery. But now his eyes are no longer two different colors. But then Hong Ye-ju thinks back to who does have that. It's the kidnapper. And she mentally replays the clues about how well she knows Park Sun, and that the person who knows Park Sun the best is him. And that's what he told her at the end of episode 5. So Mr. Min continues with, when Park Sun first came to this house, he was like a scared stray cat. He's never seen him smile comfortably in the house, and he's always felt sorry for him. It is nice to see someone else give a damn about this man outside of Hong Ye-ju. It's evident that his parents don't, if you can even call them that. But like he said, they treated him like an unwanted stray that they had to take care of. What I thought was interesting was how Park Sun's mother brought up how her pretend son and Hong Ye-ju were both stand-ins. That's what I've always liked about them, is the parallels of their lives. Our poor babies were brought into a world they never wanted, and each of them suffered in silence. While her silence was literal, his was out of fear of what the fallout would be for a lot of things, either what will happen to him, the man who raised him, or Hong Ye-ju. Unfortunately, Park Sun's silence ended up hurting his wife more than he realized it would. But Hong Ye-ju didn't let her silence deter her in finding her husband. As you remember in episode 8, Park Sun had told her to only speak to him, but in this, she disregarded that in the face of the possible danger her husband is in. So it's nice seeing this fiery, dogged part of Hong Ye-ju that Park Sun admired when she was 406. This part of her she had to keep suppressed and hidden away, but not anymore. Hong Ye-ju doesn't have time to be docile, not while her husband is missing, and she's determined to find him. Now, she gets a call from Ji Sang-woo. Hong Ye-ju was crying, but she pulls herself together before she accepts the call. I mean, he already knows she can talk, so all the pretense is off. Plus, Ji Sang-woo is calling with news about her husband. So Hong Ye-ju goes speeding to the hospital. When she runs around the corner, she spots Ji Sang-woo with those white shoes on. Hong Ye-ju goes up to him asking, where is he? Is he in surgery? And he says, yes, it's been 2 hours. And Ji Sang-woo has a bandage on his neck, on his temple, and on his hand. And his shirt has some black soot and blood on it. But she's not even mildly concerned about it, but she is all in, focusing on her husband. Hong Ye-ju asks, was he hurt badly? Where and how bad? Ji Sang-woo asks her to calm down to take a seat. When she looks down on the chair, she notices her husband's jacket with soot and burn marks on it. She asks, what's this? What in the world happened? Well, in the flashback, back at the fish store, the man who came to visit initially was Ji Sang-woo, and he addresses the fish store guy as Jung Jin-suk, the guy whose name is attached to the villa, and the same man the National Tax Service is also trying to find because, again, they want their money. Ji Sang-woo says that he wanted to ask him something, and Jung Jin-suk asks if he's a cop. Ji Sang-woo gives him his card saying his name and that he's doing a show covering the missing children from the Senil Child Care Center. And that's as far as he gets before he's thrown out without much fanfare. As he drives away, he gets a call from Na-Yuri. Hey, I heard from one of the writers that you found where Jung Jin-suk lives. Did you meet him? He confirms that he did, but it was pointless, and that as soon as he mentioned the villa, Jung Jin-suk got scared as if he feared the consequences. But as soon as Ji Sang-woo said that, he sees Park Sun passing by, so that wheels him back around to go and see the store on fire. So Ji Sang-woo fights his way back inside, and he tries to wake Park Sun, who is slowly trying to stir. He moves the fish store guy out first, and then by the time Park Sun awakes, Ji Sang-woo gets him up and moved out just seconds before a backdraft occurs. So in a voiceover, as we shift back to the scene in the hospital, Ji Sang-woo says, in regards to the fire getting started, who set it, and why Park Sun was there, or even your relationship with him, I don't know anything about that, but I couldn't ignore the non-stop ringing of his phone. Hong Ye-ju thanks him and apologizes for keeping so many things from him. Just then, the surgeon comes out and he says, for now, let's wait and see until he wakes up. And then they wheel out her husband, who she goes to, touching his face and his hand as they take him to either a recovery or to his room. But Ji Sang-woo realizes, or maybe he's already come to grips about this truth, that between him saving Park Sun and this, that the woman he loves is devoted to somebody else. So Hong Ye-ju waits by the bedside of her husband to wake up, her eyes brimming with tears as she worries. Now she's on the opposite end of what we had 2 or 3 episodes ago, where the shoe was on the other foot, and it was Pak-sun trying to find her, waiting for her to wake up in the hospital. She whispers to him, "It must have hurt. It must have been scary. You must have been so lonely. When I was hurt, scared, and lonely, you watched over me and ran to me." And we get a flashback of a couple of scenes in episode 6. The first is when the two of them have that quid pro quo conversation of truths about their relationship and marriage, and how Pak-sun mentions that the girl, meaning Huggy Ju, had no one to rely on anywhere, that he wanted to help her escape, hoping that she could leave that house and live freely. The next scene, he's charging through that forest to get to her after she shot up that flare, telling her not to worry, he'll be right there. Then in episode 7, at the observation tower, with his love confession to her. But now Huggy Ju says, "It's my turn. It's my turn to protect you." And she implores him to wake up. You would think it would be her turn for her love confession, but it's not. And our Pak-sun does not wake up yet. In the meanwhile, Na-Yuri is trying to call Ji Sang-woo, but she's not getting an answer while at work. But who sweeps in with a tray full of sweets and some drinkages? It's Pak-sun's reporter friend. He asks her, "Hey, did you receive any tip-offs about the Sunil Child Care Center?" Na-Yuri wonders why he's interested in that. She's already upset as it is, so him treating her on a day when she has no appetite, which is a big lie in the half since she takes a big bite of macarons, which I want one. So it doesn't seem like she's all that upset about it. But our reporter friend goads her into telling him something, anything to help him out. She does give up a tidbit to him, and he exclaims, "Twins," which Na-Yuri tells him to pipe down, so now he has a lead on which to search on. Well, the kidnapper is taking his aggression out on some fish, fixing them in the way to where they're sewn together. Then he gets a text. It's a news article from the puppet master about the fire at the fish shop, asking the kidnapper if he's responsible for it. The puppet master scolds him about acting alone, and that they can't keep cleaning up the mess the kidnapper has made. And luckily, despite what happened, Pak-sun is still alive. The kidnapper responds, "I had no idea. How did you know?" The puppet master doesn't answer that, insisting that this was the kidnapper's last warning. Don't cause trouble. Just wait. The kidnapper's like, "Last warning? I think you're the one who caused trouble." So it seems like the kidnapper is no longer wanting to be subdued and kept in his cage. He knows what he wants, and he's tired of waiting around taking baby steps to get it. As our Pak-sun recovers, he dreams of when he was younger, and he's catching fish in a net. When he approaches the house, he sees his guardian with an older man, Chairman Pak, and the kidnapper when he was a little boy. But our Pak-sun never sees this little boy's face. But the fish store guy is given a black suitcase bag, and he takes it over to a small yellow boat. Younger Pak-sun says, "Dad, that little man's here. Who's the kid?" The fish store guy admonishes him for calling him father. And he drags Pak-sun to the floating house, and the poor little deer, he drops his haul of fish that he collected. But his guardian tells Pak-sun to go to bed early and don't come out. But we already know that very night that's exactly what he does. Pak-sun catches Chairman Pak drowning the very boy that was with him earlier. His quote-unquote father catches him, scolds him for coming out before shoving him back into the house. While Pak-sun nervously waits, he hears footsteps approaching. But when he tries to leave the house, Chairman Pak steps onto the landing, and he starts monologuing in front of our boy, saying, "Some monsters are made, but some are simply born. It was bad luck. How dare something like that be born into my family? At first, it was a goldfish, then the cat. Next, it was the children younger than him. What kept increasing were the black bags filled with the disposed. But it's okay now. He ended up in one of those bags too. And now, I'll fill the place of my grandson with whomever I please." Then he puts his hand on Pak-sun's shoulder. "Do you know why I didn't give you a name?" And we never hear the reason why Pak-sun's original name remains blank. But oh my goodness, there were so many sinister things that went down in that scene, both speech and imagery wise. First off, I'll admit when I'm wrong on who was the true author of those children. It was the little kidnapper who disposed of those little boys who went missing, and Chairman Pak cleaned up the evidence. So it seemed that those boys weren't adopted after they went looking for the child at the villa. So after they got murked, there was probably some paperwork that were quote-unquote drawn saying that they were adopted to explain their disappearance. As for the scene itself, Our little Poxon was terrified as he was being backed up to the end of the landing or the dock with no place to go. No options unless he chose the water, which we didn't know how deep it was or if he could swim. And how frightening was the chairman, how he was drenched in that red, menacing light as he described the chilling escalations of what his grandson did and what he himself just did to his grandson. And he mentions this with as casual an air like he's talking about the weather, very matter of fact. But he's angry about how something like this could be born into his family. Your genetics, sir, bore that child. He unfortunately compiled a lot of bad genes in him, but it looks like he got a lot of it from you. Before we move on though, I wanted to break down the color red that was used because I find it fascinating that it's a red light that was used on the landing of the houseboat. Red itself has a myriad of feelings and emotions behind it. It can arouse passion and desire, but not in the mind in the gutter kind of way, not in this scene. This association is strictly with Chairman Pak, who desired to get rid of the rusty spoon he had for a grandson and was passionate enough to do the deed himself. But he exudes dominance, intimidation, strength, vengeance, and evil. I mean, all the Sith traits here. This dude has it. Even with his voice sounding like an old man who'd offer you candy, this color red on him displays everything his body language and voice isn't saying, that he's not truly all he seems. On the other side of it, to our Poxon, the light emphasizes his cautiousness as he backs up to the end of the landing where he's trapped. He's even wearing a red shirt to emphasize the danger he's in. I also went down the rabbit hole of what other red lights we usually see. We have the ones we deal with in traffic, which it means to stop. This can be interpreted at the time that Poxon will stop living his current life as he's forced into a new one. Also, it makes me think of the dark rooms used in photography. Most dark rooms have a safe light where red is the most common choice since a lot of black and white films and papers are less sensitive to that color. Chairman Pak divulging all the things that happened with his grandson, Poxon had to keep all those secrets in the dark room of his mind. But perhaps now that we're getting closer to the end of the drama, he'll open the doors without any care whether or not the sensitive information he has stored within him will get exposed and ruined by the light. But I'm sure he also wants them to get ruined so he can have way better memories with Hung Yee-ju in the future. So our Poxon finally wakes up and our Hung Yee-ju is right there. She asks if he's okay and if he's feeling better. He calls her name. She insists on getting the doctor, but he holds on to her. He says that he could hear her voice, that she told him it's okay. And again, I love the callbacks they've been doing in this episode. You know, that's an iteration of what he had said both in episode 5 after he almost got hit by the kidnapper, and also in episode 6 when he reveals about Hung Yee-ju being his soothsayer, you know, keeping him calm, telling him when he was little, it's okay. And she lets him know that it is now, and that she's going to go get the doctor for real. So as she walks out, she runs into Ji Sang-woo. She lets him know that Poxon woke up, and so she walks around him to go and find the doctor. Ji Sang-woo is like, prime opportunity to go ask some questions. So he goes into the room where Poxon is sitting up in bed. He asks, how are you feeling? Poxon is like, fine. Ji Sang-woo doesn't believe that, but this is his father's hospital, and he made sure word wouldn't get out about Poxon being there so he can relax as he gets the proper treatment. Poxon asks about the fish store guy. Is he still alive? Ji Sang-woo brings him to where his guardian is. He's alive, but he's in a coma. Ji Sang-woo asks him about his relationship with this man. Poxon says that this is the man who raised him. His name is actually Jung Sang-hung. But Poxon says that the whole history of how and why he was raised by this man is a long story, complicated and personal. Ji Sang-woo asks if Hung Yee-ju is involved in this personal matter. But Poxon tells him flat out that Hung Yee-ju is his only family and guardian. Their relationship isn't inappropriate. Ji Sang-woo is like, if it's not, why hide it? Poxon says, why should I expose Hee-ju to the world? My complicated personal matters will be revealed soon. When people start criticizing me, do you want them to gossip about her too? Poxon notices what Hung Yee-ju didn't, and that's the bandages that Ji Sang-woo is wearing. Poxon thanks him, admits that he may have gotten him wrong, and apologizes for that. He also asks for a favor, and that's for Ji Sang-woo to do his best to wake his guardian up, because he is a key witness in the Sunil Child Care Center case. And he provided a crucial tip-off, that the real culprit in this case who's been blackmailing and sending death threats is someone Poxon had assumed was dead, but he's alive and very unwell. So we see Park Sr. flipping through pages of a script, and he's sitting with Mr. Min when the PR guy comes in, telling him that the cameras are running, but the crew is already asking again if the spokesperson still can't make it. Park Sr. says, "Filming starts soon. What do you think?" The PR guy apologizes and leaves. Then Park Sr. asks Mr. Min if he's heard anything from his son. Mr. Min confirms that he hasn't, but there hasn't been any accident reports either. Park Sr., good enough. I guess it goes into that old adage of no news is good news. It's the same in this case. But after he plops down his script, Park Sr. asked Mr. Min if he checked into what he asked him to. And Mr. Min confirms that he's been keeping an eye on the professor, whoever that is. But there's nothing unusual so far. Then Park Sr. gets a text message from who we are not sure of. But whoever sends this message, it gets a smile out of him. The scene cuts back to Park Sun in his hospital bed, unplugging his phone. The first thing he checks on is the barrage of texts he received from Hong Yi-ju. "Are you still at work? Will you be late? You said you'd come home early. I can't reach you. Are you busy? Why can't I reach you? It's past 11 p.m. Why aren't you home yet? Why aren't you picking up? Where are you?" Park Sun also listens to his voicemail, a message filled with an angsty, worrying phone call from his wife, saying things like, "Where are you? Is something wrong? This has never happened before. You always let me know if you're not coming home. No matter how late, you always slept at home. You said you wouldn't be late, so why aren't you home?" And I'm sure that all fed into the fears that she had last episode about him leaving, but then she's also resolved in finding him, believing that he wouldn't leave her without reason. And this is probably the first time anyone has voiced such concern for him, because we can just see how desperate his parents are at finding him. So the doctor comes in to check Park Sun's blood pressure, and he asks if his guardian is outside, meaning his wife. She says, "No one's outside." That's because Hong Yi-ju hauled it all the way home. Her husband calls her, but she ignores it, going into his room to dig through his drawers, pulling out everything in search for something. Park Sun is now doing what she did at the beginning of the episode. When he can't get a hold of her, he starts texting, asking where did she go. In Hong Yi-ju's search, what is it that she's looking for? The modded phone. That phone didn't stay out of her hands for long, did it? So we get the scene that Park Sr. was preparing for. He's cooking in front of the cameras. His wife, the PR guy, and Mr. Min are off to the side, and there's this cardboard cutout of the Park family beside him, and it's from the portrait that we've already seen before. So Park Sr. announces to the crew that this is his wife's favorite dish of blue crab stew, and that he makes it for her so often. I doubt that, but what do I know? When mentioning how fresh the blue crab is because it's still alive, the crab pinches his finger. Park Sr. yells and flings it off, and the crew and his wife laughs at him. His PR guy retrieves it and puts it back on the table for him. Now, a savvy person who's really good with improvised moments can spin this to make it be more personable, right? But what does Park Sr. do? A god-awful awkward laugh, commenting on how prepping live crabs isn't easy. So he's kind of able to maneuver things back into line. Then he remarks to his wife that he's done this for her all the time. So when the crew asks, "Okay, so you make this for her often, but what do you usually make for your son?" What a sour note for Miss Ma'am, whose face falls at that question. But Park Sr. says that his son takes after him, liking seafood. When it comes to seafood, he's not picky. Because it's crazy how we as the audience already know what Park Sun doesn't like, and he doesn't like all seafood because he didn't like sushi. Then the doorbell rings. Park Sr. says that his son couldn't make it today, so he has to make up for it. So he invited a guest. He obviously didn't disclose this to his wife considering the look she gave him. And this doll does the most by inviting who? Hong Yi-na. Of course he did, which surprises everyone, including his wife, who I don't think she knew that Hong Yi-na returned to Korea. But this fool introduces Hong Yi-na as his daughter-in-law. Next part, we see Hong Yi-ju driving straight to the police station. But you know who else pulls up as soon as she gets out of the car? Park Sun, of course, still wrapped in bandages and looking cross AF. And she asks him, "What are you doing here? Why did you come in your state?" He counters with, "What are you doing here?" And he snags the envelope, opening it to see the phone inside. She demands it back, but he holds it out of her reach. He grabs onto her to drag her back to his car, which I have no idea why he's dragging her back to his car in order to leave her car there, but okay. Either way, she knocks his hand away. Hong Yi-ju asks him, "Why did you lie to me? I know everything now. I know you're not Park Sun. I even know who the real one is. You're worse than me. You've deceived me more doggedly than I did and way longer. So without knowing anything, I teamed up with the very guy who tried to ruin you. I threatened and tormented you. Who knows what he'll do now? So I can't just let him be. Poxon tries to interrupt, but she won't let him, saying, "For once, I want to protect you so that you will never suffer or get hurt again." But Poxon responds with, "You know what? You could get hurt or be in danger again if you stay with me. But I'm asking you to stay by my side because I can't let you go. You still don't get it. I've lived because of you. I endured because of you." And as they cry, he hugs her and he says, "Hung Yi-ju, even if I'm not the Poxon you knew, doesn't matter." She shakes her head, mentioning how it didn't matter to him whether she was the Hung Yi-ju who could speak or not, or even if she was 406. He knew, and it didn't matter then. She's happy to finally know the real him, but apologizes for realizing it so late. Alrighty, so y'all already know when our babies have a great scene of emotional outpouring, you know I have to talk about it for a minute, right? First off, this scene was so good. Not as good as the one from the last episode at the Overlook, but still good. What I liked about it is things getting out there. Hung Yi-ju unloads with the knowledge that she's aware that he's not the Pac's true son, but the part of her saying that he was more dogged than her and keeping this secret longer isn't necessarily true. At least I don't think so. Her being 406 in comparison to this, yes. But she kept the secret of her being mute almost as long as he kept the secret of not being Poxon, which is at least 20 years. I'm not going to get into the measuring contest over the handful of hours, days, or months between the two because 1, we don't know that, and 2, it doesn't matter at this point. They both harbored these separate secrets for 2 decades. That's a tie in my book. The main takeaway of this is that in light of all of this, them loving each other is what matters. She doesn't care he's not Poxon in truth, since his name isn't the reason why she fell for him. As for Poxon, I remember back in episode 4 when they were in the car and she was crying and making sounds and how glad he was at hearing it. So if Hung Yi-ju was actually mute and gradually learned how to speak, or if she never did, he would have been happy with her regardless, loved her regardless. I also find it interesting that he asked Hung Yi-ju if it mattered if he was the Poxon she knew. The thing about it is, I believe he's the only version of Poxon she's ever known. Hung Yi-na indicated that she was aware of the Pox's kid but hardly ever saw him until the Poxon we knew started to be paraded around. So it seems that the only time Hung Yi-ju ever met the real deal was when he kidnapped her back in episode 1. And Hung Yi-ju laments about her involvement with the kidnapper and tormenting her husband when it was the last thing she ever wanted to do. And I believe her. At the time of when she did it, the last thing Hung Yi-ju wanted was for her husband to be harmed. She just wanted to divorce him without any problems, to live her best happy life away from all the people causing her grief. But that's not the road they went down, because the ironic thing was that without her assuming the mantle of 406, the breakthrough of their relationship may never have happened. Which brings me back to an issue I've had with this series so far, and is highlighted in this scene in particular, and that's the lack of communication between the two of them. I get that it's done deliberately for conflict, dramatics, and discord, and as this has led us up to this point, I'll give them that. Poxon being a butt up until almost midway through the series, I didn't like it, but for salaciousness, I get it. It was a good hooking point that drew me in. I also understood that Hung Yi-ju learning this news from Hung Yi-na about his paternity was crucial because it paid off in this scene for her to confront her husband about it, and I assume helped rebuild trust between the two sisters. Even her talking in front of his parents and Mr. Min earlier in the episode makes sense because of the desperation of trying to find her husband, even after Poxon had told her not to talk in front of anyone else. That I'm not miffed about, but her ghosting him to turn in the phone to the police after he asked her not to irked me. And on the same token, and I get that he's trying to protect her still, I get it. But if he had been upfront on any of the scale of the operations that he has going on behind the scenes, he wouldn't have had to leave the hospital early to confront her in front of a police station. You know what I also find funny about this? When he wasn't his loving best when we first met his character, that apparently he always let her know when he was running late. But it's crazy to me that as soon as he confesses his love to her, here he goes just gallivanting off into dangerous situations without a word to his wife. And Grant, I don't know how good it would have been for him to say, "Hey, I'm running late," when she has no idea where he's running off to. But still, a lot of these heavy secrets Park Sun has left to deal with is probably what he might think is the breaking point, like him witnessing the drowning of the real Park Sun. Perhaps he thinks that might be the one thing that drives her away, but we know she'll find him blameless for most of the things that took place in his childhood, and at this rate, she'll forgive him everything. The most egregious sins he had done to her was his cruelty and his neglect, but she has already forgiven him for it. So him not being related to the Parks in any way, water under the bridge, since she had secrets she kept herself. I personally just wish that all was laid out on the table between the two of them and for them to face whatever comes their way together as a united front. So back to the Park Senior, whatever. He's got his soup going while Hangina helps him out. Miss Ma'am asks Mr. Min if he knew, and he says no. But it seems that Senior Park and Hangina has been in contact before this. And Miss Ma'am scoffs because she also makes note on how now Hangina can both speak and listen now. And Hangina, with a glass of wine in hand, she looks at the cardboard cutout of the family, and she's analyzing Park Sun. And she says, I've always been curious about this. Who does the spokesperson take after? And Hangina speculates that no matter how closely she looks at him, Park Sun doesn't resemble any one of his parents. Oh, girlfriend is trying to blow up their spot while they're filming this. And she has this innocent, doe-eyed expression to go along with the underlying venom. I love this for her. And Miss Ma'am detects it too. Park Senior's like, what are you talking about? Back in my prime, I had big bright eyes and a sharp jawline, just like my son. You lie, but okay. Hangina's like, really? Let's see some old photos. Do you have an album? Don't you want to see what the spokesperson looked like as a child? I bet he was cute. And there are rejoinders from the crew who wishes to see it too. Cause I'm sure Park Sun also has like a lot of fangirls, cause man is handsome. So the director cuts in with a question of his own for Hangina. That since the wedding, Hangina and the spokesperson haven't attended any official events together. Why is that? Hangina says that the Park Sun she knew before the wedding versus the Park Sun she got to know after are two completely different people. And she says that in Miss Ma'am's direction. The director wants to know what she means by that. Hangina iterates that the person she knew before the wedding was the man in this cutout, but she later found out that their son, doorbell. Mr. Min goes to answer it while Park Senior snatches her wine away, fussing at her on how her daytime drinking is dangerous, especially since she can't hold her liquor. Oh, she ain't trying to hold her liquor. I'm just letting you know that. So Mr. Min comes back with a styrofoam cooler, and Park Senior assumes that it's the abalone that he had ordered. But what's in there that he throws down on the ground is the sewn together fishes that the crazy kidnapper had arts and crafted together a few scenes ago. Miss Ma'am sees this and instantly knows who did it. She leaves, and as soon as she gets outside the gate, the delivery driver drives off, so Miss Ma'am follows him. Eventually, he tries to lose her, but they get to a light, but as soon as it starts turning yellow, the motorcycle does a U-turn, and as he passes her going the other way, they exchange glances. But she follows suit as soon as her light turns green. Next, we see Nayuri getting her lashes done. She finally hears from Ji Sang-woo though. She immediately goes to the hospital where he's leaving and catches him, or rather, he catches her when she trips on concrete. He asks if she's okay, but she's more interested in his wrapped hand, asking what happens. He says he got a little hurt. She's like, a little? This isn't a little. And she spots the one at his temple and at his neck. And she wonders who did this to him. He says it's kind of a long story. Then she asks him to follow her and she drags him off. And they go out to eat. And he tells her about the fire where she spits on him in surprise. Girl, like you got chunks all in his food. But he feels like he was very fortunate despite everything. Nayuri wonders who started the fire and why. Ji Sang-woo apologizes because he can't tell her. It involves someone's personal life, and it's not his place to share. So Nayuri asks him, must she keep digging into this case? The higher-ups are pressuring us not to air it. Someone's trying to cover it up. How interesting. So as the cleanup happens at the Park's house, Hangina grabs her coat to leave. She stops in front of Park Senior and the director, saying how she never gave consent, so don't even think about showing her face. Park Senior goes after her, asking Hangina what was she doing. Her? What do you mean? I came to ask questions that need to be asked. And she heel turns with that and waltzes out. Okay, now, back to our babies. Hangiju eases her husband back down onto his hospital bed. I'm surprised they came back after today's field trip, but here they are. She asks if he needs anything, Park Sun asks if she can stay by his side until he falls asleep. Hong Ye-ju pulls up a chair and holds his hand, reassuring that she'll be right here. Park Sun says, "I'm having trouble sleeping. When I close my eyes, I have nightmares about fire." Poor baby. There's so many elements that haunt him. Water and now fire. And I'm like, I would say earth and air is kind of like maybe something else that haunted him, because that's something that had plagued, unfortunately, Hong Ye-ju when she got pushed off of the overlook. But now it's his wife's turn to join him on the bed. Once she settles into his arms, she asks how did he find her earlier. He asks for his phone, which she gives. He reveals that he knew because he activated location sharing. She asks when did he? He said right after the cliff incident. He felt anxious. Hong Ye-ju wants it on her phone too, since she's anxious as well. Understandably so. But Park Sun says, "Hong Ye-ju, if you can't reach me in the future or don't know where I am, don't look for me. Promise me." But she can't do that. And considering the reason why he's in the hospital right now, her fear and concern is understandable. But Park Sun iterates, "Don't look for me. Just wait. I'll come find you. Don't worry. I know who he is now. I'll handle it." Oh, like you handled this fire? Okay. Sorry. I just have so many issues with that, but continuing on. Hong Ye-ju wonders, what do you think he wants? Does he want to get back what was once his? His name? His place? Park Sun responds with, "No matter what he wants, what I want is clear. To leave behind the name Park Sun and start fresh with you. Let's be happy together." She prompts him to go to sleep as they snuggle close, and for him not to have any bad dreams and just to sleep, and she is right there with him. And she falls asleep sooner than he does because she has been up most, if not all, of the night before, so she is bone tired. But Park Sun opens his eyes, looking his fill of her, stroking her hair and kissing her forehead goodnight. But I'm ready for those real kisses though. I'm ready for it to get back. It's sweet, but I'm ready for the action-packed kisses. Let's go. But then he gets a call from Ji Sang-woo. He says that his guardian is awake and has already asked for Park Sun. So when our bae goes and visits him, he holds his hand, telling the older man that he did great. His guardian apologizes that he never should have saved him. We get a flashback of when Chairman Park handed Jung Sang-hoon the black bag, telling him to take care of it. When he got the bag into the back of his truck, it started moving. The original Park Sun was in it, still alive after the drowning attempt by his grandfather. The guardian couldn't bring himself to off the child, and the little boy had lost all of his memories. His mental abilities had weakened, so he assumed that it would be okay if he was the one who looked after him. But unfortunately, the original Park Sun's natural inclinations still remained. Our Park Sun is very touched by what his guardian had done, showing not only grace to himself by taking our Park Sun in and raising him as his own, but he also did the same thing to this other little boy. He couldn't cast him aside either. But then he asked, "Where are they? The black bags the chairman asked you to take care of. I have to find them. I'll find them and expose everything he did." So Miss Ma'am, Park Sun's mother, arrives at the house and spots the motorcycle, in the driveway. She walks in and you see pictures and stuff put in glass cases like a museum. And all the pictures are of Chairman Park, greeting foreign dignitaries. There's also this huge portrait of him, which I believe was probably the same portrait that was in the villa that young Ji Sang-woo had seen. So it's with this assumption that this is his house. And as of this moment, we have no idea what happened to the man. My money is still on the original Park Sun ending his grandfather in retribution for what he had done to him. I mean, it'll be an apt end, so I would get if that's the reason why we don't see this man, or if he's contained in the home or something like that. But suddenly, a motorcycle helmet drops to the floor, which spooks Miss Ma'am. And so she turns around and she sees her son, her actual son, chuckling at seeing her. So I'm not sure if she's been in steady contact with him or not, but I think it's mighty convenient that these sewn together fishes were delivered at the exact minute when a filming crew would be there. I'm also at the assumption that this wasn't a live taping, so I'm not sure if he was already aware that a special was being filmed, because I'm sure they do this for every election, but I don't know if he was really accurate or knowledgeable on the time and place to send these fishes. So either way, this meeting does not bode well for me for a variety of different reasons. Then again, neither has her attitude for majority of the series. I get that she's suffering because of having to give up her son for a privileged life, but I think she might be making up to him in future episodes. So back at the presidential office, Kang Young-woo confirms that Park Sun has been in the hospital, and it seems like he hurt himself quite a bit. Still, Park Sun is insisting on attending today's event, so Kang Young-woo is worried. Then he wonders what happened this time. Was he injured badly? Kang Young-woo says he doesn't know. Shouldn't we go see him at the hospital? The thing about this is like they were wondering, or at least the sane people are wondering, if Park Sun will even be happy to see them, and they don't even know which hospital he's in. Kang Young-woo says, "We do," directly looking at Park Do-jae. Park Do-jae turns his head like, "Not it." But Kang Young-woo doesn't buy it, but he figures there's a way to find out which hospital Park Sun is in. I hate this. I really do. Just what? Let's leave the man alone. Anyway, Hong Ye-ju and Ji Sang-woo are having coffee in front of the hospital. He suddenly says, "The director of the Nuri Dream Center told me that when we were college, you came to volunteer and was holding a crying baby, singing a lullaby to calm the baby down." And then there's a flashback of Hong Ye-ju doing just that and the director overhearing her. Hong Ye-ju's like, "I think I remember that. I'm sorry, Sang-woo." He says, "You're sorry? I got to hear your voice, so it's fine." When she was trying to explain the relationship between her and Park Sun, Ji Sang-woo waves love that she doesn't need to explain. At first he was surprised and worried, but there's one thing he's sure of. That Park Sun isn't hiding her, but protecting her. Then she recalls what her husband said in episode 1 during the embassy party about how he faces attacks on all sides, how he's the government's official scapegoat, so he doesn't want his wife to be exposed to those attacks, and that she's his weakness. And this scene comes full circle for her because Hong Ye-ju believed that he was acting the love-struck fool and that he was also pretending that his feelings and his sentiments was in regards to Hong Ina when that wasn't the case. He earnestly, wholeheartedly told the truth, and that truth was about her. When she gets back to the room, her husband is dressing in his suit, about to put on his tie. She asks if he's ready to go. He is. Hong Ye-ju wants to do the tie for him. He asks, "Do you know how?" She asks, "How do I do it?" He chuckles but shows her how, and she does a great job. He asks if she's prepared for today's event. She is, but will he be okay? He assures her he will be, and tells her to come with the rest of the team and be careful. She goes in for a hug, which he returns, and she tells him not to worry about her, and for him to be careful too. You know who doesn't know how to be careful with his timing? Kang Young-woo. Why does he always have to interrupt our couple snuggling sessions? Anyway, Park Sun picks up the call and ding, crew is here, getting off the elevator. Park Sun is like, where? Didn't you say you'd have it delivered? Kang Young-woo was like, no way. We came in person to deliver your commemorative speech and morning coffee. And guess what? They found his room. A room he's standing with his wife in. A wife no one knows he's married to. Before Kang Young-woo can open the door, Park Sun briefly closes it before opening it, stepping out of it. He asks for the paper and coffee. Park Do-jae asks if he's feeling okay. And Park Sun's like, yep, fine, all fine. See you later. Kang Young-woo asks if they can come in. To do what, sir? If you don't get your intrusive self on somewhere. I'm sorry, I know a lot of people enjoy comedic turns like this, and in other dramas, I do too on occasion, but this isn't a drama for this right now, and it's particularly aggravating that it not only happened this episode, but the previous one too. So it's so annoying, and honestly, if I see it in future episodes, I'm popping off, so sorry y'all have to hear it. Back on topic, Park Sun tells his crew that he's about to get discharged, so the crew says that they'll just meet him at the event. Before he can get dragged off, Kang Young-woo tells Park Sun that he's leading the event today and wanted to rehearse with him before he left. So once he's done being discharged, they can still go back into the room, and everyone is rolling their eyes at this, and me too. Like, again, so annoying. And Park Sun's like, do we really need to rehearse it together? The answer, of course not. And Kang Young-woo is like, you and I are a well-oiled machine. We're perfectly in sync. The best team. Okay, buddy. So before we go off, Kang Young-woo's parade gets rained on when Park Sun calls Park Do-jae to join him in the room. Now we're getting ready for the event, the 2024 Environmental Climate Day. And I mean, kids are there doing arts and crafts, people are getting handed plants and biodegradable flower pots. Hong Ye-ju is nervous backstage because she's doing this interpretation live, and it's a first with her husband. He notices her fidgeting and comes over to talk to her. He says, "Are you ready, Miss Hong Ye-ju?" She signs, "Yes, Mr. Park." He signs back, "You look nervous." Hung Yi-ju replies, "I'm confident I can do well. I've been dreaming of this moment for so long." And Park Sun says he's been looking forward to it too. The moment he'll stand side by side with interpreter Hung Yi-ju. After a nod, they're ready to go up on stage. Park Sun goes on with his speech with his wife interpreting for him. In the meanwhile, since this broadcast is live, her former colleagues are watching her along with her father, who tells his nurse, in a bit of lucidity, how he's so proud of his daughter and hey, that's his son-in-law. And he even mimics her signing. It is so cute. So after Park Sun's speech is done, our two baes look at each other, pleased that all went down without any issues or problems, and Hung Yi-ju has fulfilled the dream of interpreting for the man whose video she had rehearsed tirelessly. But she would only do that for the man she truly loves. So Park Sun's reporter friend is working late, and he calls his bae. He asks Park Sun if he's busy, and our bae says, "Yes." His reporter friend's like, "Screw you're busy. Anyway, that's the Neil Child Care Center case though. I combed through everything and found nada. Does that make sense to you?" And Park Sun's like, "That's why you called?" Not just. His reporter friend's like, "By the way, did you know there were twins amongst the missing kids?" That's news to Park Sun. And his reporter friend's like, "Yeah, so the family of the missing person could be out there still, the other twin. The reason this case is difficult is that the kids are orphans and there's no victim families, or at least families that want to claim them. But with finding the twin, there's a shot at getting a testimony or a statement." But the reporter friend lets Park Sun know, like, "Hey, if anything comes about any of this, I get the exclusive interview from you." So from there, Park Sun is driving up Sinjok Mountain per where his guardian told him to go. And while he's driving, we see Park Do-jae usher Hung Yi-ju towards the car, telling her that the spokesperson asked him to take her back to the office, which is probably what Park Sun had told him back at the hospital. He gives her a bottle of water, commends her on her good work, and in she goes. Park Sun arrives at his destination, and there's 4 mounds up there. There's flowers around them here and there, and they look like they were planted, most likely by his guardian, for some solace and penance for what he had to do. But here are those missing, poor, unfortunate children. And Park Sun remembers seeing his guardian putting a black luggage bag in the back of his truck and looking ashamed about what he's had to do, but put as much dignity and respect into making sure those children could have as beautiful a resting place as he could give them. So Park Sun's reporter friend calls back and says, "The police gave me access, so I checked the missing person's family DNA database. I looked for twins from the Sunil Child Care Center back in 2000, and the younger twins' information came through. I'll send it to you. Check it for yourself." So what his friend sends is a picture of personal records, which astonishes Park Sun. Next scene, we hear the vibration of a phone and someone getting out of a car in the middle of nowhere. He ignores the call coming through, and we see a knocked out Hung Yi-ju in the back seat, no doubt from the bottle of water he gave her, and Park Do-jae turning to look at her. Oh goodness. Park Sun keeps calling because he already knows what's going on. He tries calling her number and it goes straight to voicemail. And with a stunned, frightened Park Sun realizing what just happened, it freeze frames on him. And that's the end of episode 9. Oh no, our Hung Yi-ju is now in the hands of the puppet master. I hate that it's Park Do-jae, y'all. He seemed like a real one, but now we know a lot of his orchestrations, him being a part of Park Sun's team, was all deliberate. But his moves make me scratch my head. Maybe we'll find out more later, but I was puzzled on his animosity towards Park Sun. Now, one of the things I hate is when people put full-on blame on someone who didn't do a thing. Park Do-jae is obviously pissed off that his brother got unalived, but isn't he going after the wrong person? In fact, he's working closely with the person who actually did it. I would have thought that someone as meticulous as Park Do-jae, who had orchestrated most of the structure of this whole plan together, I would have thought he would have done more thorough research in regard to this before he jumped into this without fully knowing the ins and outs of everything, unless... Does he think that our Park Sun was the crazy little boy from back in the day? I mean, it would make better sense if that was the explanation for it. Park Sun's guardian said that the kidnapper had lost his memory after he was drowned by his grandfather, even though it seems that the kidnapper has regained it over time. Then the fish store guy took him in and raised him just like he did for our Park Sun. So with the boys switching places, it seemed this was kept so tight-lipped that no one outside of the Park and Hong families and John Sang-hoon knew. So there's a high chance that Park Do-jae doesn't know this switch happened. So him aiming all his ire at our boy would make sense if that is what happened or what he believed had happened. Also, I find it interesting how the two boys that Jung Sung-hoon had raised came to him differently in these last 2 episodes. In other words, I'm surprised the kidnapper didn't off him before setting fire to the store. Sure, the man raised him, but he was also complacent in what happened to him. But while one of his quote-unquote sons did him harm, the older one, who is more filial and still holds him in high regard despite his wrongdoings, came to save him and wouldn't leave without him. A single theme for this episode is hard to pinpoint, but if I was to name one, it's probably that this episode further opened Pandora's box. A lot of bells were rung during this episode and you can't unhear them. Case in point, Hung Yi-ju ripping off the band-aid about her being able to speak, where she talked to the Pox, Mr. Min, Hung Yi-na, and Ji Sang-woo. Hung Yi-na was about to put the Pox on blast for the secrets they kept in front of the camera crew. The kidnapper stepping outside of the parameters and escalating attacks on his own outside of the Puppet Master's wishes. The Puppet Master being revealed as Park Do-jae and him kidnapping and drugging Hung Yi-ju, and Park-sun finding that out too late. Jung Sung-hoon coming clean to Park-sun on where those 4 little boys were. And also with Ji Sang-woo as well, him of course discovering all this information regarding the Senil Child Care Center, and of course the relationship between Park-sun and Hung Yi-ju, all that is contained, but he's being a secret keeper, he's keeping all that stuff to himself. So my predictions for episode 10. Well, Park-sun's mom, she'll be okay. I'm sure between the 3 of them, of the kidnapper, Miss Ma'am, and Park Do-jae, will convene over what to do about Hung Yi-ju now that she's been abducted. And just like this is an opposite episode of Park-sun being hospitalized, just like Hung Yi-ju was in episode 7, I think we'll get the same regarding something else. And that something else I mean is by our babies literally saying truths out loud. Hung Yi-ju talked to almost everyone in this episode while she was trying to find her husband. Now in episode 10, I strongly believe Park-sun is going to let a lot of people know who his wife is, while he himself is trying to find her. I mean, he'll need all his resources about him to do so, and Park-sun doesn't care who knows it now, as long as his Hee-jua comes back to him safely. Speaking of couples though, I need more Ji Sang-woo and Na Yuri scenes. I hope we get some in this upcoming episode. You can tell that her attention has shifted from Park-sun to Ji Sang-woo, and I think all of her affection for Park-sun will come to rest officially once she hears who he's married to. I love that Ji Sang-woo didn't get jealous of our couple's relationship. The jealousy part, that's all for our male lead to do, but with Ji Sang-woo, it was just plain acceptance, which I commend him for. Ji Sang-woo gets my gold star this episode. Now I hope that he will be receptive to a new romance blossoming before him. I love so many moments in this episode. The scene in front of the police station was great despite the reason for them going there in the first place. Didn't care for that, but the scene made up for that. Hated the scenes with Kang Yeon-woo in it for this reason I've already mentioned. I like Hung Yi-na trying to put stuff on blast, but I'm like, wait a minute sis, don't try to blow up the bridge before you're done crossing it. But for sure, I can't wait to see what episode 10 brings. So yeah, that's my recap for episode 9. I'm so sorry for the slow go of these recaps, but real life calls sometimes. Y'all know how it can be. But I'm off to work on the next recap, so please, like and subscribe. Stay a while. Let me know what your impressions have been up to this point. I've given you mine, but hey, it's just a thought.